Harriet the Spy, Chapter 2. When Harriet was ready for bed that night, she took out her notebook. She had a lot to think about. Tomorrow was the beginning of school. Tomorrow she would have a quantity of notes to take on the changes that had taken place on her friends over the summer. Tonight she wanted to think about Miss Golly. Harriet put down the book and ran into old Golly's room to kiss her goodnight. Old Golly sat in a rocker in the light of an overhead lamp, reading. Harriet flew into the room and bounded right into the center of the billowy yellow quilt which covered the single bed. Everything in the room was yellow, from the walls to the vase of the chrysalis. Old Golly took to. "What does that mean?" Harriet asked after she had been quiet a minute. "What do you think it means?" "Well, maybe if you love everything, then everything, I guess. You'll know everything, then it seems like you'll love everything more. I don't know." "Well, that's about it." Old Golly looked at Harriet in as gentle a way as she could, considering the fact that her face looked like it was cut of oak. "I want to know everything, everything," screeched Harriet, suddenly lying back and bouncing up on and down on the bed. "Everything in the world, everything, everything, everything. I will be a spy and know everything. It won't do you a bit of good to know everything if you don't do anything with it. Now get up, Miss Harriet the Spy. You're going to sleep now." And with that, old Golly marched over and grabbed Harriet by the ear. "Ouch," said Harriet as she was led to her room, but really it didn't hurt. "There now, into bed. Will Mommy and Daddy be home in time to kiss me goodnight?" "Well, they will not," said old Golly as she tucked Harriet in. "They went to a party. You'll see them in the morning at breakfast. Now time to sleep. Instantly." "Hee," said Harriet. "Instant sleep. And not another word out of you. Tomorrow you go back to school." Old Golly leaned over and gave her head a little peck on the forehead. Old Golly was never very kissy, which Harriet thought was just as well as she hated it. Old Golly turned the light out, and Harriet listened to her go back into her room, which was right across the hall, pick up her book, and sit down in the rocker again. Then Harriet did what she always did when she was supposed to be asleep. She got out her flashlight, put the book she was currently reading under the covers, and read happily until old Golly came in and took the flashlight away, as she did every night. The next morning, Miss Welsh asked, "Wouldn't you like to try a ham sandwich, or egg salad, or peanut butter?" Her mother looked quizzically at Harriet while the cook stood next to the table, looking enraged. "Tomato," said Harriet, not even looking up from the book she was reading at breakfast. "Stop reading at the table." Harriet put the book down. "Listen, Harriet, you've taken a tomato sandwich to school every day for 5 years. Don't you get tired of them?" "No." "How about cream cheese and olive?" Harriet shook her head. The cook threw up one arm in despair. "Pastrami, roast beef, cucumber, tomato." Miss Welsh raised her shoulders and looked helplessly at the cook. The cook grimaced, sought in her ways. The cook said firmly and left the room. Miss Welsh took a sip of coffee. "Are you looking forward to school?" "Not particularly." Miss Welsh put the paper down and looked at his daughter. "Do you like school?" "No," said Harriet. "I always hated it." And said Mr. Welsh, and went back behind the paper. "Dear, you mustn't say these things like that. I rather liked it. That is, when I was 11, I did." Miss Welsh looked at Harriet as though expecting an answer. Harriet didn't know what she felt about school. "Drink your milk," said Miss Welsh. Harriet always waited until her mother said this. No matter how thirsty she was, it always made her feel comfortable to have her mother remind her. She drank her milk, wiped her mouth sedately, and got up from the table. Old Golly came into the room on her way to the kitchen. "What do you say when you get up from the table, Harriet?" Miss Welsh asked absent-mindedly. "Excuse me," said Harriet. "Good manners are very important, particularly in the morning," snapped old Golly as she went into the door. Old Golly was always horribly grumpy in the morning. Harriet ran very fast all the way up to her room. "I'm starting the 6th grade," she yelled. Just to keep herself company, she got her notebook, slammed the door, and thundered down the steps. "Goodbye, goodbye," she yelled, as though she were going to Africa, and slammed out the front door. Harriet's school was called the Gregory School, having been founded by a Miss Eleanor Gregory around the turn of the century. It was on East End Avenue, a few blocks from Harriet's house. And across the street from Carl Schwartz Park. Harriet skipped away down East End Avenue, hugging her notebook happily. At the entrance to her school, a group of children crowded through the door. More stood around on the sidewalk. They were all shapes and sizes and mostly girls because the Gregory School was a girls' school. But boys were allowed to attend up through the 6th grade, but after that they had to go someplace else. It made Harriet sad to think about this year after sports wouldn't be in school. She didn't care about the others, in particular about Pinky Whitehead. She didn't care because she thought he was the dumbest thing in the world. The only other boy in her class was a boy named Harriet had christened the boy with the purple socks. Because he was so boring, no one ever bothered him to remember his name. He had come to school last year and everyone else had been there since the 1st grade. Harriet remembered that first day when he came in with those purple socks on. Whoever heard of purple socks? She figured it was lucky he wore them, otherwise no one else would have even known he was there at all. He'd never said a word. Sport came up to her as she leaned against a fire hydrant and opened her notebook. "Hi," he said. "Hi. Anyone else here yet?" "Just that dumb boy with those purple socks." Harriet wrote quickly in her notebook. "Sometimes Sport looks as though he's been up all night. He has funny little dry things around his eyes. I worry about him." "Sport, did you wash your face?" "Huh? No, I forgot." Harriet said disapprovingly, and Sport looked away. Actually, Harriet didn't wash hers either, but she couldn't tell it. "Hey, there's Janie," Sport pointed up the street. Janie Gibbs was Harriet's best friend besides Sport. She had a chemistry set and planned one day to blow up the world. Both Harriet and Sport had a great respect for Janie's experiments, but they didn't understand a word she said about them. Janie came slowly towards them, her eyes apparently focused on a tree across the street in a park. She looked odd walking that way, her head turned completely to the right like a soldier on a parade. Both Sport and Harriet knew she didn't like this because she was shy and didn't want to see anyone, so they didn't mention it. She almost bumped into them. "Hi, hi, hi." That over, they all stood there. "Oh dear," said Janie. Another year older, and I'm no closer to my goal." Sport and Harriet nodded seriously. They watched a long black limousine driver by a chauffeur. It stopped in front of the school. A small blonde girl got out. "There's that dreadful Beth Ellen Hanson," said Janie with a sneer. Beth Ellen was one of the prettiest girls in the class, so everyone despised her, particularly Janie, who was rather plain and freckled. Harriet took some notes. "Janie gets stranger every year. I think she might blow up the world. Beth Ellen always looks like she might cry." Rachel Hennessy and Marianne Hawthorne came up walking up together. They were always together. "Good morning, Harriet," Simon Jane. Marianne Hawthorne said very formally. She acted like a teacher, as though she were 1 minute away from rapping on the desk for attention. Rachel did everything Marianne did, so now she looked down her nose at them and nodded hello. One quick jerk of the head, the two of them went into the school then. "Are they not too much?" Janie said, and looked away in disgust. "Carrie Andrews got off the bus," Harriet wrote. "Carrie Andrews is considerably fatter this year." "Laura Peters got out of the station wagon bus," Harriet wrote. "And Laura Peters is thinner and uglier. I think she could use some braces on her teeth." "Oh boy," said Sport. They looked, and there was Pinky Whitehead. Pinky was so pale, thin, and weak that she looked like a glass of milk, a tall, thin glass of milk. Sport couldn't bear to look at him. Harriet turned away from habit, then looked back to see if he had changed. Then she wrote, "Pinky Whitehead has not changed. Pinky Whitehead will never change." That's the end of chapter 2.